Hello and welcome back to Lugs and Levers. My name is Joachim. This time on the bench we have this Omega Seamaster that is not running and is missing the crown. For this repair we require some special own design fixturing, some bespoke tooling, detailed service as always, and let's see if we can get this one running again. Let's jump straight into it. As you can see, the dial is in decent condition. We have some patina on the dial. The crown is missing, and from the looks of it the case looks pretty much unpolished, so that's good. So let's open it up and see how the inside looks using my rubber ball here and hope that it's sufficient to open the case. As always, beautiful looking Omega movement. This one is caliber 552 automatic movement without any additional complications. Let's check the rotor function. It seems to be winding correctly in both directions. So let's start by removing the rotor. That is done by removing this rotor gib, as this small piece is called. Now let's see if we can lift it gently. And here we have the gib that we are removing here as well. Next is to remove the case screws, 2 of them, and the case clamps of course. Let's see if we can get the movement out of the case. A little bit stuck. Now we can have a look at the dial and start by putting some plastic on so we can remove the hands and protect the dial as much as possible. Using my hand levers here and gently trying to lift the hands. See if they will pop off. There we go. Put those away. We come back to those. And when we have put away the hands, we can start to... Oh, yeah, the dial is not supposed to come off like that. It's supposed to be held in place with 2 dial screws. And from what we can see here, it's look like we have a case of super glue holding the die in place. So that needs to be addressed, but first let's remove the delicate parts. We remove the balance first. And gently taking it out of the movement. Then we start working on the automatic bridge so that we can access the rest of the movement together with the pallet fork. Removing the 2 screws holding the bridge in place. Then we can pop the bridge off. Just have a quick look. Then we remove the pallet fork held in place by 2 screws. Starting by removing the pallet fork bridge. And then the pallet fork. You can see there's some power in the movement. Escape wheel is moving very slowly. Then we have the center pinion here, or the second hand pinion. Then we can work on the bridge for all the wheels. You can see they are still spinning a bit, indicating that this watch is in dire need of service. Let's gently lift the bridge. Oh, the wheels are actually stuck in the pivots. Let's see if we can get them off. Wheels are really stuck in there. So let's hope it's only gunk and oil holding them in place, so there's no damages done to the pivots or the jewels for that matter. We can put away the bridge. Then let's start working on the ratchet. This movement has a 2-piece ratchet. So we have the top ratchet wheel and we have a bottom ratchet wheel for the automatic winding function. So I have the top wheel, a little bit of corrosion there that we need to address. Then we have the crown wheel Here we have the center part with the screw. Also here we can see some corrosion we need to address as well. And we have the lower ratchet wheel. Looks like that one is in good condition. Then we unscrew the screw for the click. Remove the click as well. And then the click spring. And let's remove the barrel bridge. Held in place with 3 screws. See if we can gently lift it. There we go. A lot of dirt underneath. Let's flip the movement over. Start by removing the canning pinion using my Presto tool. Then flip it back and we can remove the center wheel. And let's work on the keyless work. Here we see a couple of issues. The setting lever spring is broken, so there we need to source a new one. And also we have a lot of super glue from someone previously glued the dial in place. Here it's got into the keyless works, into the screws, preventing us from actually placing the screwdriver in the screw. Just using a very sharp knife here gently to pry away any super glue. And also try not to scratch any of the parts that we're going to keep. Now that we have gotten rid of some super glue, we can finally unscrew the setting lever spring. It's getting stuck, still held in place with some super glue. Let's see if we can gently pry it away. There we go. Ah, what a mess. Yeah, we need a new one of those. Let's see if we can assess the damage on the rest of the parts. Wheel seems to be free. Let's check the rest of the keyless works. Spring is free. Oh. The yoke here is really stuck. Can't be lifted. We have a lot of super glue being in the way. Since the tolerances are tight, it's preventing us from lifting the part up. Yeah, let's remove the rest of the parts first. So here we have our small spring for the setting lever and the setting lever itself. And let's continue. Here we're adding a little bit of acetone. And finally we can get the yoke free. We have a lot of super glue and a lot of parts that needs to be cleaned here. As you can see, we have some on the base plate, the main plate, that we need to remove. But unfortunately, I did not film that process. But what I did was finally taking a Q-tip, dipping it in acetone and slowly rubbing away the super glue that we had. As acetone is a really good solution to remove super glue without any damage to the rest of the parts. It worked out fine. We had some super glue in some of the pivots, and that's probably the main reason why the movement wasn't running at all. But now we have finally solved that, and we can see if we can get it working finally. In the background here you see I'm disassembling the automatic module here. Starting by removing this bridge. Then we have the reversing wheel. And we have the rest of the wheels here for the automatic winding works. A lot of grease and gunk here, just need a good cleaning. Here we have the shock protection for the escape wheel. Let's remove that before cleaning. Oh, this one is stuck in place. We have some super glue here as well. need to address that. This is not a place where we want some super glue. Now let's move into the cleaning process, starting by pegging all the jewel holes as soon as we have removed all the super glue, of course. This is to remove any gunked up oil and making sure that the cleaning process can do its job. We also remove some oxidation here on the main plate while we're at it. Here we have this bushing for the crown wheel. Was a bit stuck, but looks in good condition. Then let's do the same here, remove any excess oil and stuff. We're also polishing the pivots of all the wheels. We're not polishing, but cleaning the pivots. And let's remove the corrosion on the crown wheel using just some pegwood to scrape it off. That should stop it from spreading further. And then let's move on to the barrel. A lot of grease here. These kind of automatic braking greases are tough to remove. And moving on with the case, scraping away all the gunk and wrist cheese and whatnot, so that the cleaning process can do its work here as well. Then we have this really hardened gasket that we need to take away so that we can get the watch more waterproof, I should say, by replacing it with a modern gasket. And gently cleaning the dial, just using Rodico to lift any loose dirt or debris on the dial. We have some patina on the dial and would like to keep that as much as possible. Now let's have a look on the back side. Here it should be 2 dial feet. These are missing on this particular dial. We also have some super glue residue. I do not dare to take any acetone on the back of the dial by risk of damaging the lacquer on the other side. So just gently prying it away from the back side here to enable the dial to sit as close to the movement as it should when we have fixed the dial feet on this one. So gently scraping away, making sure that we remove as much as possible of this super glue. Then when we are done with that, we need to figure out a way on how we can attach the dial feet in the right position. So we take some nice photos, bring it into our CAD software, and we can design a fixture that we can use together with this Bespoke dial feet milling tool. Took a couple of tries to get the exact position right. But here we have the finalized fixturing where we place the dial upside down. We are guiding it on the center and supporting it on the sides. And then the alignment is done with this cutout, which is at 3 o'clock, where the stem goes through. Then we squeeze it, and then we have this guide feature for the new dial feet, just checking that it's in the exact correct position. Looks right. Now we come to the nerve-wracking process of milling new holes for the dial feet. Since these are 0.1 millimeter thick, we need to mill 0.1 millimeter in the right position. And since we have a curvature on this dial, we need to do this slightly off-center to make sure that we don't mill through the dial, because that will ruin it, of course. Now just checking with the dial feet that we have milled enough. Looks like we need a little bit more. And this is the worst thing I have ever done on a watch. Super nerve-wracking. So you are afraid that you are going to mill through the dial when you have this curved dial. So now starting on the other side, So gently here, just checking all the time, also moving back and forth, so we make sure that debris from milling or the chips go away. And this tool was made by a guy at a watch forum. Super thankful for him to making this bespoke tool fitting within 1,000 of a millimeter tolerance with my staking set. So we are sure that we are centered when doing this milling. And here we are just roughen up the surface so that we get slightly more surface area for the adhesive that we are going to use. Using a small diamond file here. Just scraping the surface. Then we adjust the dial feet. Just making sure that they are flat. Then we need to adjust the shape a little bit, since we are milling off center, and the important thing is that the dial feet position is correct. So we're actually removing a little bit of surface area for the glue here, but now that we can make sure that the dial fit in the exact correct position. Here using a bit of epoxy that we will use to attach the dial feet. This is the second best option, since we don't have the possibility to do any special soldering. You can't solder with normal solder. You need to use a very special machine to solder these kind of parts, which of course I don't have at this time. So we're using the next best thing. Epoxy that should be strong enough to hold these dial feet in the correct position. So using my oiler to distribute the epoxy on the surface where we are gluing the new dial feet. Then we can place the dial feet in place. And now we have roughly 5 minutes of working time here to attach both of the dial feet. And then we have this guiding part of the fixture, which will make sure that the dial feet is in the exact correct position, so that it will fit on the movement once it's dried. So just checking that it's looking all right. Now this has been curing for over 24 hours. So let's check if we did all right with our fixturing and see if it fits on the movement. So here we are, moment of truth. And it looks like we have a winner. Really happy with that result. Managed to get the dial to fit nicely onto the movement. With the worst part out of the way, let's continue to assemble the watch again. Starting by adding braking grease to the barrel walls. Adding it here on 5 different places. And this is the Kluber P125 braking grease, especially designed for automatic watches. We have a new mainspring that we're going to install. Just gently pressing it down. And when we have it in place, we can install the barrel arbor. There we go, nice click. And then we have the barrel lid. Placing it on top. And then we have this barrel closing tool. We'll replace the barrel in the center. And we can just press down on this lid. Here we're adding a bit of HP 1300 to the barrel arbor on both sides. Making sure that it's lubricated enough. Then we have the center wheel. It also needs a little bit of lubrication before it's being installed. Then we have the barrel bridge. Just placing it. And there we have the right position. Good. We can check for a side shake. It's a little bit of side shake, but I think it's good enough. adding the screws and making sure that the barrel bridge is tightened down. And with the other pivot of the center wheel and also the barrel pivots, adding a bit of HP 1300 here as well, so medium viscosity oil, and removing any excess using a bit of Rodico. Then we can install the train of wheels, starting with the escape wheel, then continuing with the fourth wheel, and then we have the third wheel coming up as well, just as soon as we have figured out the pivots. So when we have the wheels in place, we can then place the wheel bridge, making sure that all the pivots align. Here we have them all in place. And just check for function. The free spinning wheels. Then we can make sure that the bridge is tightened down using these two screws. And holding it in place so that the pivots don't escape their pivot holes. And then we magically assemble the crown wheel. And let's continue then with the click spring, adding a little bit of HP 1300 here for the click. And then we have the lower ratchet wheel. Needs to align this with the square hole to fit on the arbor. And we need to install the click in the right orientation as well. It helps a lot for the function. Then we can add the click screw. And make sure that it's tightened down, of course. And then we have the upper ratchet wheel. With this satellite gear that's preventing it to spin in the wrong direction. And then we have the ratchet wheel screw as well. And as always, make sure that it's tightened down. Then we're working on the keyless works, starting with the winding pinion. So adding a bit of grease to these teeth. Then we have the clutch. Also here on the contact points, adding a bit of grease. Then placing it. Then let's continue with the setting lever. Adding grease to the sliding surface. Just position it correctly. And then we have this small spring. It is a very tiny screw. Lucky actually dropping it in place. Just need to make sure that it's upright so that we can screw it. And making sure that it's tightened down. Adding a little bit of grease to the clutch here. And also to the yoke pivot point, which is now clean from any super glue. Then we can install the yoke. Then we have a little bit of grease on the contact surface between the yoke and the setting lever. And we have the yoke spring. Switching to my brass tweezers so that we can put it in place without scratching anything. Then we have the pivot points for the intermediate wheels and winding wheels and also the cannon pinion. And here we are using HP 1300. Placing the cannon pinion first before the minute wheel, just so that we eliminate any risk of shearing off the gear teeth. Here we have our new setting lever spring. Just aligning it here before we can add the two screws. And tighten it down. Start by one, then we add the other. Then we gently bend it in place and add a little bit of grease to the contact points. And then we do a final tightening. Then we check the function. Should snap nicely back and forth. And let's continue with the escape wheel shock setting. So adding some 90-10 here to the capstone, and then we can add a chaton. Then we can place the whole thing back inside the movement. And then we top it off with this small spring. Then add the screw and tighten it down. Next up we have the pallet fork. Just been cleaned in essence of Renata. Then we dry it a bit with a puff of air. And then we can install it into the movement by first aligning the bottom pivot. Then we have the pallet fork bridge where we need to align the top pivot. This is a very delicate operation. When we have it in place, we can then add the 2 screws and making sure that it's tightened down. And when we have done that, it's time to check the function. So adding a little bit of wind. And then the pallet fork should snap nicely back and forth. Next step is to lubricate the impulse jewels. So what we're doing here is the exit jewel. We're adding a drop of oil onto that. And then we step it forward 5 times. Then we add another drop. And then we spread it out over the escape wheel. And then we add another one. And then we do it 5 times again, making sure that we cover all the teeth of the escape wheel. And this will then spread evenly when the watch is running. Then we have this seconds pinion, where we have this very small, delicate spring on top. And we add a screw and tighten it down. Then we have the balance finally. Also cleaned in essence of Renata, and then with a puff of air we can clean it and then install it onto the movement, and let's see if we finally have a running watch. So moment of truth. Just need a little bit of help. Now we finally have a running watch again. Adding the screw to the balance and tighten it down. Then we need to lubricate the balance jewels, starting with the top one, removing it here from the shock setting. And when it's clean, let's add a drop of 90-10, trying it to get as centered as possible before we add the chaton back. And then we can place it back onto the balance. Then we can close this Inca block spring. Next up, we add some oil to the different wheels. So for the escape wheel here, we're using 90-10, and for the slow moving wheels, we are using HP 1300. Doing it on both sides, both the top and bottom of the movement. Making sure that everything is lubricated nicely. And now after a while you can see that the balance has picked up speed and we are getting some decent amplitudes from it. So let's check it. First we demagnetize it. And let's see how it's running. It's running a bit fast. Beat error is decent, should be below 1 millisecond. Amplitude will pick up since we just lubricated all the pivots. And in the meantime, you can see that we are assembling the automatic module here. So placing all the wheels and then the reversing wheel finally, which we have lubricated beforehand with Lubetta 105. That is a lubrication especially designed for these kind of reversing wheels, hard to reach places. So it leaves a very thin film on the inside of the reversing wheels as well, so it provides adequate lubrication. Then we can add the top bridge in place, making sure that the function is okay. It's working in both directions, great. And then we can place the screws for the bridge. Just making sure that we get all these 3 screws in the right position. Let's continue by lubricating the pivots for all the wheels on the automatic works on both sides. There we are. So used HP 1300 on all of these pivots. Then we can place the automatic module onto the main plate. And then when we turn the crown, it snaps nicely in place, and we can check that it's winding correctly. Now we're placing the 2 screws for automatic module and making sure that all is nice and tight. Then we continue with the hands. I wasn't planning on replacing the loom, but it's in so bad condition that it's falling apart. So let's scrape away the old loom on the hands before we replace it. And based on this reference and the time, this shouldn't be a radium loom. But you should always be careful working on vintage watches. So using my pegwood here to scrape away the loom from the back side of the hands. But we can't really get into the slot in between, so we need something sharper. And here an old oiler comes in very handy. Then you can really get into it, but you need to be careful not to scratch the delicate hands. It's a great way of removing this old loom. As you can see, it just falls apart. And when we have scraped away all the loom and cleaned any residue, we can then place the hands onto this balance holder. So making sure that they're pointing in 2 different directions. And then we mix a new lume that we will add to the hands. So adding a bit of grayish tint to match the lume left on the dial. And then applying it from the bottom. That way you get a really nice coverage without the risk of making big blobs so that the hands can catch together. So gently pulling from one side to the other. And while we wait for the new lume to dry, we can install a new crystal on the case. So here we have a new crystal, and using my crystal press to press it down. See if we can get a nice click. There we go. Great. And then we have a new crystal installed. Then we can add the dial screws to our newly fitted dial feet and the dial before we start to add the hands. Starting with the hour hand, pressing it down in multiple goes so that we don't add too much pressure. Then we attach the minute hand, making sure that it's aligned nice. And then again we can press that down. When that's done, let's check the function, making sure that they can move freely across the dial. There's no catching or anything. And then finally we can add a seconds hand, placing it on this very small pivot. And gently pressing it down. Then we can add the movement to the case. Then start with the final touches. So just flipping the case over. We have the movement inside the case running nicely. Now we need to just align everything here. Then we have put in the new stem and new crown. And we have the case clamps and the screws for the case clamps. A little bit of tension there, so need to add just a little bit of force to find a hole for the screw. And we can add a second case clamp. And the screw for the case clamp, and we can make sure that it's tightened down. And we need to adjust the length of the stem. So measuring first to make sure that we get it correct. Then let's check. We need to do some additional adjustments, and there we have it. Now that we have the correct length, we can add a little bit of Loctite to make sure that the crown stays in place. And then we can add some grease to the stem on all the contact surfaces. So just rotating it around in my fingers here and adding a little bit of grease on the different contact surfaces. And then we can do the final installation of the crown and stem. Now all we need is a new case back gasket. So lubricating that one with some silicone grease before we can place that onto the case. Just need to get it to fit inside this little groove. Now that we have a new gasket, we can continue by installing the final piece of the puzzle here, the automatic rotor. When we have that in place, we have the gib that we should put back inside. We add just a tiny bit of HP 1300 to the tip of the gib. And then we can tighten it down. Then we can just add the case back. Even if this was one of the most nerve-wracking restorations I've done so far, I really enjoyed the process. So thank you very much for watching. If you like to know anything more, know any details about the tools I'm using or the processes I'm using, just drop a comment below and I will reply. So thank you very much. Hit that subscribe and like button, and I will see you in the next one.